everybody. I am super excited. This is the last episode for Black History Month this February. And I have the privilege of sitting down not only with someone I know from high school, and I had the opportunity to grow up with in a very important part of my life, but to also be able to connect with even after. And I think I've been kind of, Facebook connects you, y'all. Facebook really, and I've had the opportunity to watch this gentleman from afar, but still being able to witness some great things that he's doing in the community. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you, my friend, my peer, but also someone that is an advocate for not only women, but also men and minorities in our community, Mr. Chris Bass.
How you doing?
What's up? What's up? It's so good to see you.
Likewise, it's good to see you. This is a great platform you have.
Thank you so much. So what have you been up to? I kind of just want to dive into that a little bit, get the people a little bit. I usually go off of like, this is what they're doing and stuff like that. But can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing?
So I am a girls basketball coach and a women's basketball coach. I coach AAU. I also coach high school at our old high school, Henryport Academy. And I coach a professional women's basketball team, and I'm responsible for, leading the recruiting for young women to increase their platform professionally through basketball. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of the WNBA, but it has like limited opportunities for women. So what we've done is try to create a situation where we can expand their exposure. All of our ladies play overseas. So what we do is give them an American platform. So when they come back from overseas after being over there for 9 months, they can come play in front of their friends and family. A lot of people that saw them kind of grow into professional athletes, they can still remind their country that they're from, that they're still professionals.
Wow. Okay. So not only are you advocating for women in sports, but you're also supporting high schoolers too. So it's not even just waiting till they get to professional level. It's also supporting those in high school.
Yeah, I think that it's very much important that you start when people are kids in general, but women especially, because women in sports is it's very much vital to their success, and imagery matters. It's important for women to see that, for young girls, for their favorite athletes to not be men but just women as well, because there are a lot of phenomenal women athletes. So what we try to do is show girls at a young age that if they play a sport, they're just as valuable as the boy or the man that plays the sport, and that sports can do a lot for them, not just the obvious things like, money and fame and things of that nature, but it can also pay for their education. A lot of women who have went to college on sports scholarships become doctors, therapists, physicians, lawyers, all types of things. So it's not just an end-all be-all with fame and money, but it also creates a plethora of opportunities. So it's important for us to keep that message going, that women can also use sports as a vehicle just like men can.
Wow. And that opportunity to open that door. And you've been connecting these young women with just different opportunities and open up the doors and just being a support to them. And that truly is a blessing. But I don't want to just stop at just the titles and what you do for a living. I want to kind of dive in a little bit deeper into the man that you are. How would you define yourself as Chris Bass? If someone walked up to you, who is Chris Bass?
Well, if I had to be completely honest about it, I'd say I'm a very complicated individual. Not complicated in the sense of being deep, but just I'm conflicted like many people are. Like, I deal with things on a daily basis where I try to find consistency. And, as, being a young adult, that's tough. Like, you're always finding the line or drawing a line on who you are as a person. I just try to line things up morally with what I've been taught and what I've learned through experience, and try to make the best decision in every walk of life I can. And if I don't always make the best decision, which I'm guilty of, I'm guilty of making mistakes that, that have had some consequences. So I've had to kind of, figure it out, like we're all having to figure it out. So.
I truly appreciate your just vulnerability and honesty to say, like, we're just figuring it out.
Mm.
I'm a man that's still trying to figure out from day to day. I make mistakes, but I'm human and I'm growing and evolving. And one of the reasons why it was like leveling up and taking it to the next level as the title of this was because I've seen you via Facebook and via virtually going through multiple things in life, but still each moment you've been kind of leveling up just a bit, just growing and evolving in those areas. Can you kind of talk about a little bit more of the reason why you decided to go into sports and advocating for sports and being part of it?
So for me, I've always played sports since I was a young age. I kind of grew up in the culture. And like I said, part of figuring everything out is like we think when we're 15, 16 years old, we know exactly what we want to do. And we don't always pay attention to things that are happening around us. And for me, like when I was in high school, as you know, I wanted to be a famous rapper. It was all about music. And that was what I put my heart and soul into at the time. And I didn't realize that I had some qualities that would make me a good coach and would make me good for sports, because I never really saw a future in it. But it seemed, after we graduated, it seemed that I always found myself in the sports arena, like, giving insight, input, people valuing my opinion. So it took me a few years to kind of get back into it and to start going out and putting all of my energy into it. But it's always been there, but it took me a lot of bumping my head and kind of circling back to kind of really get fully back into it. So
Wow. And how did you not get discouraged those times that you did bump your head or those times that you had other dreams for yourself? How did you not get discouraged on the growth?
well, I feel like I did get discouraged. So it's a situation where, like as an adult, like you were as a kid growing into an adult, you feel like it's this process, like that you go to school and like things just happen. Like you go to college, things just are supposed to kind of like fall into place. And that's not always true. I mean, and the biggest thing for me is fulfillment. Like, I started working in property management. I started working in real estate when, my dreams weren't paying the bills per se. And I just kind of found that I just never was going to be happy just kind of paying the bills and doing per se a job to make money. Like that was never going to make me personally happy. Now, if that means that it was going to be somewhat agonizing for myself and I was going to have to make sacrifices, then, that was just going to have to be the road to take, because at the end of the day, fulfillment is the most important thing for me. So, I could make however much money a year, but if I'm not doing what I want to do and I'm not able to give that the appropriate amount of energy, myself, I'm just never going to be happy. So for me, it was just about finding happiness um, within doing something I love, because, as you say, it's hard to be in a situation where, where you're just doing something just to do it. You have to really be invested in what you're doing. So
Yeah, and just listening to you, it sounds like you went to a place of prioritizing what you valued and what
mhm,
was important to you and actually putting yourself first. So going back to that fulfillment, you had to know at some point that this was what's important to me. This is
mhm.
what I value. So I think that's a really great takeaway to really focus in on is knowing what you value, knowing what makes you happy, and moving in that. Um, just staying on that area right there of just what we value and priorities, I know that it has also been a rough couple of years too,
Mm.
with the loss of a parent and loss of loved ones. Can you talk about that a little bit and how have your mother helped to keep you encouraged and to walk in that light that you have just beautifully have around you right now?
Oh, I really appreciate that. I mean, well, the thing is that like so for me, I lost my father in 2003. I lost my stepfather in 2010. So for me, it was just for the better part of the last, I want to say, decade. It was my mother, my stepmother, and my grandmother. Those were like the three women that kind of kept me. Um, they kind of helped me put everything in perspective. They loved me, they cared for me, everything. And 2020 was just like, it was just a weird year. I actually like, I bounced around. I had like probably 4 jobs in 2020. I know a lot of people, struggle with being off of work due to the pandemic. And I fortunately and unfortunately had 4 different jobs that didn't quite really work out the way that I thought they would, whether it was of my doing, or the employer's doing. I just 4 situations just wasn't the right fit. And my mother, like during that time period, I had no inkling of, anything was going wrong or anything like that. But she always made sure to keep me encouraged because that was a really tough time for me because I like, because we were talking about, I wasn't really fulfilled in those situations, but yet I was trying to keep something that part of me open because that part of me was paying for a lifestyle that I was living. So she kept me encouraged, and then to lose her in July of 2020, it kind of compounded a lot of what I was already struggling with.
Mhm.
Already struggling with a sense of purpose, a sense of worth, and to think that I can lose the person that who always made sure to remind me of what my sense of worth was. Mine was very low at that moment, so it's been a process of of trying to get back to a point where you feel good about yourself. And I had to work through that. And then shortly after, well, I want to say probably 9 months after, I lost my grandmother. So that was 2/3 of really of all of the parental figures I had left. And so it was just really about getting back and finding a sense of purpose for myself, and really just revisiting a lot of things and a lot of conversations that I had with my mother and with even with my grandmother as well. Because like I said, dark nights just don't start with death and death of family members. Dark nights start, alone within yourself, and you don't always share those. But what happens is trauma compounds a lot of what we're going through. So it compounded a lot. And I realized that I had to slowly get to a point where I could feel better about me again and to keep going. And I just had to keep telling myself each day that I had to keep going. And there were days where it didn't really there didn't really feel like there was a point to anything in life. But you just have to, for me, what I had to do was to keep revisiting things that we talked about. My mother was a very strong person as far as perseverance. I mean, she experienced a lot of trauma in her life, dealt with a lot of things. So I kind of pulled back to her story and things that she went through to pull from for strength. I mean, I've done therapy, I've done counseling, but ultimately for me, I had to try to pull something, to create energy to keep going each day.
Wow, I just want to take a moment and appreciate you for just being open and transparent. One of the things that stuck out to me is that from childhood you've experienced death and grief of really close loved ones. even into your adulthood. And for you to take on that strength and take on those things to reflect and say, okay, I have had dark days. I've had moments where I didn't see my purpose. To see you now, where yes, you said earlier, you're still human, you're still making mistakes, but you're utilizing the gifts that's been inside of you all of your life to start advocating and helping others. And that takes bravery. That takes courage. And I don't want to like just move past it so quickly because I think that's so important. And thank you for that.
I appreciate you.
Always, always. Um, and just moving from that and self-care, how do you continue to fill your cup?
I feel my so um well, I think it's important to try to be around as much love as possible. That's the most thing, and you need to not just be in a position where everything is all idle. So and it's tough. I mean, a lot of times we don't want to be around people, especially when we're feeling a certain way. But the what I found for me is that when I shut people out, I I I don't, it just doesn't work out well for me. So sometimes it's about just calling somebody on the phone and just having a conversation, or just just even if it's just something casual where you're talking about the weather or just talking about certain things. You just kind of need to talk to people that you can be vulnerable around, that you can kind of um just call and just talk 5 minutes, whether it's just just to have a conversation, just to hear somebody else tell you about their life, versus talking to people where you might, and people don't always do this intentionally. We talk to a lot of unintentional people that aren't always good for us. People can't always help how they come off. So
Mhm.
I think it's important to um to first be around positivity, be around people who love you, and to converse with those that do. And the next thing is to talk about what upset you, because the thing is that these processes, things that we're going through, right or wrong or indifferent, like we're gonna feel some type of way. I always say that, like, whether it's death or whether it's just life in general, like, everybody doesn't always know what to say, everybody doesn't always know what to do. There are always going to be errors, there are always going to be things that you wish would have gone a little differently. So I always encourage you to make, or I encourage myself to always make that be known, because part of me, what I would do is internalize it and just say, well, they don't know any better, or they don't really care, and so, and I would kind of keep it in. And what that does is that kind of that energy will ooze out of you, and it won't allow you to be the person that you're capable of being. So for me, what I try to do is I try to always be around people that are gonna bring out the best version of me. I try to engage in things that are going to bring out the best version of me as well. Like, whether it's just actions, do things that make you happy. And that's really, I want to say, the main thing I do to keep my cup full. But, like, as we talked about earlier, like, I'm still learning how to take care of me. I know at bare minimum what to do to keep moving every day. So that I'm still really learning how to really self-care for myself, honestly.
And that honesty is honestly what opens the door for everybody to know that
Mhm.
self-care is not just something you just pick up one day and you got it figured out. Or I
Right.
do this one thing. It might work for that day, but maybe that self-care is not something you do a year from now or a month from now. Um, but a couple things that stood out to me in regards to what you were saying was, one, being the support system that you have around you and the people that you connect with, but also the transparency and honesty that you have with certain people and not internalizing things. Sometimes that energy and things that we hold inside can do more damage if it holding in than it would if we actually talked and said something and communicated. And I think that was also very powerful, very powerful. So as people are listening, we talked about so much, but one of the things that I want to connect with so people can kind of circle back with is how can people look out for the Detroit Queens? How can they look out for more information and connecting?
So I appreciate you asking that. You can follow us on social media. We're at Detroit Queens WBB. So it's just so WBB for women's basketball. You can find us on all platforms, pretty much by that handle. And we'll be opening up our season in May 14th actually. And we're gonna have some a very exciting season. We plan on doing some things to honor the Detroit Shock, who won 3 championships here in the city. A lot of positive women that were in our community just a little bit over a decade ago, and I think that what they've done in the community, the precedent that they set, isn't talked about enough. So we'll be doing a lot to honor what what they set up, how they made a way for us to do what we do. And it's just going to be a very fun spring and summer. I encourage everybody to learn a lot more about what we're doing and join the movement, because I think they'll be very much impressed by the product that we put on the floor, but even more impressed by the leaders, the great women leaders that we have that are a part of our team and organization.
Wow. Okay. So that's Detroit Queens WWB.
So WBB, like women's basketball.
Okay. So Detroit Queens WBB. I'll make sure that's scrolling across the screen. So y'all should see it, probably scrolling now. So it's probably scrolling across the screen now with all the information you need to follow that on all social media platforms. In addition to that, as we are closing and coming to an end, is there any encouragement or words of love or advice that you want to just give to our viewers today?
Well, I'd like to say that for everybody, and I don't want anybody to minimize anything that they've been through. Anything that you've been through or are going through is a thing. Like, no matter how big or how small, don't minimize it because person A or person B is going through this and etc. You have to own what it is that you're fighting through, and realize that it's okay to feel a certain way about how you're feeling. Right, wrong, or indifferent. I mean, you're entitled to your emotions. Now, how you act on your emotions is a different thing, but always own how you feel. And I would just say the best thing I can say is to keep going. Obviously, I'm not, a medical professional or anything like that, but I would say whatever you can do to take another breath, to take another step, 1 minute, 1 second, 1 hour, 1 day at a time, whatever you can do to get that next moment, do that. And, and there's always going to be someone or something that'll be there for you. And that would be my biggest thing. For me, I want to try to empathize or sympathize with everything that a person can be going through, because I know that it can be 100 little things or one big thing. It all matters.
I think that was a strong point to really end on, is that it doesn't matter what you are going through at all, and minimizing it you shouldn't do that, because it does matter. And I like that so much that you just brought that to the table, and that's the way we ending it. Y'all, we had a great segment with Coach Chris Bass.
I appreciate you.
Coach Chris Bass. And I just wanted to shout you out and say thank you for just being a part of the living legacy of Black history in this day and age.
I want to thank you. I appreciate you having me on. This has been great, just not on a professional level, but just on a personal level, just to kind of to say a lot of these things. 'Cause I haven't said a lot of this. It's just been kind of things that I have felt. So you have kind of helped me verbalize it. So I appreciate you for sure.
I appreciate that as well. Until next time, y'all, continue to check us out, manifest31.com. You can follow Detroit Queens, WBB, at all social platforms, and continue to end this Black History Month with a smile. Awesome. Talk to y'all soon.